Hello, I'm David Harper with the BBC News. The leader of the military coup in Niger has said that his country does not want a war, but has warned that it would defend itself against any foreign intervention. General Abdulrahman Chiani was speaking in a televised address after meeting with mediators from the West African group ECOWAS in the capital Niamey. ECOWAS has repeatedly warned of military action if diplomatic efforts failed. The visit coincided with a military recruitment drive at a stadium in the city. Yunus Ahima is one of the organisers.
We aren't
talking about recruiting for the army. It's about recruiting volunteers who are ready to defend their country. It's because of all the attacks we're facing. We're at war, we have to say it. At the ECOWAS level in particular, which is the most recent. We are in the process of saying through this mobilization that this war will not be a war between the Niger soldiers and them. This war will be between the people of Niger and them.
Israel's military has launched a major manhunt for a suspected Palestinian gunman who shot dead an Israeli father and son in the occupied West Bank. Roadblocks have been set up and businesses told to close around the village of Hawara, where the killings took place. Yolande Nell reports.
The village of Hawara has long been a flashpoint in the West Bank. It's located on a main road south of Nablus, which is used by Palestinians and Israeli settlers. In the past, Israelis would sometimes shop there, but that's become uncommon since a recent upsurge in violence. This year, Hawara has seen several shooting attacks targeting Israeli settlers and soldiers, including the killing of 2 brothers in February. That attack triggered a deadly rampage by a large crowd of settlers in one of the worst such attacks in years.
And protesters in the Israeli city of Tel Aviv have observed a minute's silence for the 2 men shot dead in the occupied West Bank. Thousands gathered for the 33rd consecutive week of rallies against the government's planned overhaul of the judiciary. The United States has announced sanctions against 100 Nicaraguan municipal officials accused of involvement in violent crackdowns against opposition activists. Dozens of government officials, including President Daniel Ortega, have already been sanctioned by the US for alleged human rights violations. Our America's regional editor, Leonardo Rocha, reports.
The sanctions come a few days after Nicaragua's socialist government seized one of the country's top private universities, which belonged to a Roman Catholic order. The government accused Universidad Centroamericana of being a center of terrorism and renamed it after a student who died fighting a military dictatorship in the 1960s. The U.S. State Department described it as an important civic space and said the individuals targeted by the sanctions were involved in its closure. The Biden administration has also called for the unconditional release of a high-profile Catholic bishop, Rolando Alvarez. He's been sentenced to 26 years in jail for plotting to unsettle Mr. Ortega's government.
World News from the BBC. A Russian ballistic missile has landed in the heart of the northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv, killing at least 7 people and injuring more than 100. The missile appears to have directly hit the regional theatre. The force of the blast blew out windows and made the roof cave in. This local woman saw the effect of the blast.
I saw 2 girls here. There was a lot of blood. One had her leg wounded. There was no skin. We put a tourniquet on and were waiting for an ambulance, but it took a long time. Another girl was screaming loudly.
Among the victims nearby were people celebrating an Orthodox Christian holiday at a church. Russia said it had successfully hit a military target. Chernihiv is about 50 kilometres from the border with Belarus. It was besieged by Russia at the beginning of the invasion. Canadian firefighters say they're making progress against enormous wildfires in British Columbia, but have warned of difficult days ahead. The blazes are menacing tens of thousands of people who live in the cities of Kelowna and West Kelowna. Many of them have been told they may have to leave within minutes. In a dramatic start to the World Athletics Championships in Hungary, Dutch favourite Sifan Hassan's hopes for a trio of world titles came to an abrupt end as she fell during the 10,000-metre race. Within sight of the finish line, she lost her footing as her Ethiopian rival, Gudaf Sigai, passed her to victory. Russia's space agency says there's been an emergency on board its Luna 25 spacecraft, which is scheduled to reach the moon on Monday. Roscosmos said the emergency took place as the craft was preparing to enter pre-landing orbit, but gave no further details. Luna 25, which doesn't have a crew, is attempting to carry out the first soft landing at the moon's south pole. It's intended to search for evidence of water. India also has a spacecraft en route to the same destination. It's expected to land several days later. That's the latest BBC News.